the string vibration is the main goal.
And we have another question.
Yes, one question. You make this drum very fast.
Yes.
And how did you come to this speed?
Lots of coffee. So again, that speed, we talked about yesterday, for that fast strum, instead of just thinking as fast as I can, I emphasize the downbeat. That helps me kind of keep track of where I am. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then being able to but it's not just, it's that nudge, and that nudge, that little bit emphasis is what makes it, and here's the incredible thing. We always think that when we see a pattern on the paper, that's how it's played. Dynamics, again, it always goes back to dynamics. Even if I strum like this, if I emphasize different hits, again, it's the same pattern, but the emphasis creates that illusion of separation in those hits when there's really not. So again, that's why we always say practice soft, practice loud, and everything in between, so that you can pull from those changes.
And to build up faster.
Oh yeah, I used to do this.
But
no, I
let me real quick. All I was gonna say is that for me, because to be able to build up speed, I end up, because I did bring that for you specifically for that. But I started by watching myself in a mirror and trying to keep this hand relaxed, because it's really easy to tense this hand when you're trying to play quickly. So, and I would start just this speed. And then slowly build up.
Again, look how small
but it's very
that movement
small.
is. Yeah.
That's the other thing, is you're concentrating on making it as small as possible so you can move quickly, but also keeping it relaxed, which is, I think, really hard to do at first. Because you're concentrating and then you tense up, and then you'll look in the mirror and your hand's like this. So, but Craig has a really, and I used to do this, Craig has a fantastic way of prepping.
Before iTunes, when we would go to the theater to watch movies, I would be in line, super bored, no smartphones yet.
Oh, no.
But I would create rhythm patterns. I would do. And it has that nice click.
And it has that resistance.
Because the stub was really thick, right?
And
so I would do that all the time. And it's a great practice. So again, you don't even need your ukulele to practice. But again, a lot of this stuff.
Can we have a card?
Is it? We should make practice cards.
we should. But business cards also work really well too. So thank you. Yeah. So even if you don't have your ukulele, you can use this, because the thing I liked about it was having resistance against to press, go up and down against. Yes.
Sometimes when I didn't go by bike and by bus, I do it in the bus.
Oh yeah, on your leg. Yeah, you can do that.
Jeans and not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, you can.
Well, and again, we talked about how we can do the spider exercise without your ukulele.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a chance, and even if it's just thinking of a progression, or you're thinking of a change, that adds up. That really does. It's the little things you do today, even without your ukulele, will add up once you apply it. Mm-hmm. So we, for us, we're always thinking about things.
Well, I used to take the bus to work, and I created color-coded flashcards for myself to learn all of my chord tones and all of my keys. So major 7 chords were green, and it'd say C major 7, and I'd say C, E, G, B. And then I'd flip to the next one, and it'd be yellow, which is minor 7, A minor 7, A, C, E, G, etc. And I'd go through them. But I also did that with my dots. Is I would say 5th fret, and starting on the G string, I would say the names of the notes. Because if you know your dots, you'll know the rest of them. Mm-hmm. So that was, I used to do that on the bus. I didn't need my ukulele.
So if you start on the 5th fret, can you redo the chord from there up, or the?
Well, it was just for that. It was just naming the notes.
Oh, okay.
Because I needed to know my fretboard to play my scales. So I did my dots. first?
When I was still living in Oregon, I worked with some kids. A lot of the kids had ukuleles from their parents or their grandparents, and there was one girl who stood out. She couldn't afford an ukulele, but I would bring a bunch during the class. But unfortunately, they weren't mine to give away, so I had to take it back after class. But every week she would come in. She ended up practicing on a broomstick. She made notches and just what, and she was the best one in that group without even playing an ukulele.
Wow.
And that blew my mind. And it was just one of those things that again, we are in charge of how much energy we want to put into it. If we're dedicated enough, we want to take the time, we will find time. You know, it's these little things. And again, hopefully when you're ready to make that push, we have it as efficiently as possible, you know, with the exercises and whatnot. But it was just so, you know, I ended up finding her an ukulele, but it was just absolutely incredible. And I couldn't believe it. And the whole time I thought she was practicing on an ukulele until the last day. She's like, oh no, I just using my broomstick. I'm like, what? Absolutely incredible. All right. Any other questions before we get started? Yes. Oh. What they said, yes.
Practically, you can sweep the room afterwards.
We discussed this morning about performing on stage.
Yes.
And we wonder how you feel about the whole darkness in front of you.
Yes.
You are on the spot, and
If you can't see,
people's
It's
are-
more distracting to see everyone.
yes.
Because a lot of people, especially as we're kind of watching across, sometimes people are digging their nose or doing like weird things. And, and sometimes it catches us off guard a little bit. But we can still see a little bit in the darkness, at least the first couple rows.
Yeah.
But we still try to scan out just to see. But we like making eye contact, even though sometimes it's not the best idea to.
Yes.
You know, we've had some people that, again, their resting face is very
Angry.
different. So it's just like,
But they're
but they're having a good time.
having a good time.
But sometimes we'll look and I'll just start laughing because they look so unhappy.
But I actually, it depends. So, for example, last night, because we knew that all of you would be in the audience, we were much more relaxed and not nervous because to us, our friends are in the audience, so we could have more fun because there was nothing to be worried about. So I enjoyed seeing you and being able to laugh and share. And yes, there were other people there, but knowing that we had you in the audience made us more relaxed than, say, our first time playing in Berlin, when we didn't know many of the people in the audience, so we felt like we needed to be on our best behavior.
Now we don't care. Is it?
So for me, I liked seeing the audience last night. But there are some times, if it's a really big gig, we had one that was it was called the NAMM Breakfast Show, and it's at a big trade show in LA. And we were the entertainment for all of the big dealers' breakfasts. And it was, I was shaking. I was terrified. Because it was
Well, these are all the big heads in the industry and it was
right?
just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And not only that, we got to stage and there's these huge screens.
Oh yeah, we were this big on
And they had cameras and they put our faces. And I know I have a big head, so it was just,
So
oh my gosh,
for something like that, I didn't want to see the audience
Yeah.
because
Well,
I was
another way
already
to
nervous.
think about it too
Yeah.
is when you're focused. Imagine, us talking to you in the group here compared to outside where there's trees moving and everything else. It's just a lot of stimulation, visually, so that it is very much more distracting. Where compared to a darker room, everything kind of fades away a little bit. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah. But I feel it is easier when it is darker. If it's a more nerve-wracking situation, if I can't totally see everyone, because I also a lot of times if I get really nervous, like I did on that one gig, I'll close my eyes and I'll pretend I'm on my couch. And I'll just visualize my living room while I play.
Have you doze off?
I know I should, and I snore. But for me, I try to think of the most comfortable place possible. And if I'm nervous before I even start the song, you'll see me. I'll take a minute, because you don't have to start right away. You can stop. You can breathe. Close your eyes and think of a place that makes you calm. Think of the song and the tempo. Hum it.
And you
Right.
saw us do that a lot last night. We
One-
didn't just jump into a song.
No,
We
you
got into
stop.
the right headspace. We kind
You have
of
to
made
think.
sure the tempo wasn't too fast that we're setting out. We're thinking about, again, what we're trying to tell with this story. You know, this
And-
song.
Yeah, and as an audience member, you don't mind seeing that. That doesn't take very long, and it helps calm you a little bit and lets you think. Because the biggest thing that a lot of people will forget is you need to think about the song first. Think about the tempo before you even do your first drum, because that will set you up to succeed. Versus if you rush into it, then oh no, it's too fast. What do I do? Oh no, I don't remember all the words.
Now, one question that we asked you from day one was I wanted you to think about what kind of performer you want to be. Last night, one of the reasons why I feel we've kind of found our groove and are as comfortable as possible, us as a duo, as performers now, we want to just share.
Yeah.
We're not trying to be the next virtuoso. We're not trying to be a jazz singer diva. You know, but it really is. These are the songs we enjoy. These are stories from our lives, and we want to share it with you. And because of that, we are who we are off stage as on stage. You know, we're not trying to be a different persona, but that's okay if you do, because some people completely transform. For example, Taimane Gardner, incredible performer, but she is so different off stage. She is so relaxed and humble and free off stage, and she gets on stage and she just demands your attention. She, grabs you by the ears and makes you pay attention. But she's amazing.
But she's really sweet.
But she has that kind of stage persona that works perfectly for her. But part of this again is, what kind of performer do you want to be? Okay.
Even if it's only performing in your living room.
Yes.
I was really surprised about your bass man.
Oh, he's great.
He's from Berlin.
Yes.
Yes.
And could you talk how it worked? So you
Sabina
sing,
said,
we
"Hey,
lost
I
it."
know a bass player can play," and then
Yep.
that's it.
And then so Sabina got us in contact with him because she asked if we wanted a bass player, because we usually play with one.
Yes.
And so she said, "Oh, I know someone who's really great." So we got his email. I emailed him charts and musical recordings and said, I think, and this, we didn't know all the songs we were going to play yet. I said, this is probably some of them. If I think of more, I'll send them to you. And we didn't send him all the songs ahead of time. I think there were 4 that he didn't get ahead of time. But we got together on Wednesday in the morning. We rehearsed for an hour.
That's it.
He recorded the rehearsal.
A couple songs.
And then there were 4 songs that we sprung on him. But
Yes.
he, partially because he recorded them, he was able to go home. He practiced a little bit, and then we all got together.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. But gotta prepare them.
Do you often use a bass, a oak bass player?
So Milo, our main bass player from Oregon, he typically plays stand-up, but for a lot of the events, we make him play the Ohana uke bass. It has a great sound and it's easier to travel with. But for some of the more bigger venues, he'll actually play stand-up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
One more question about electronic equipment for your performance.
I saw a lot of time, for example, Jake Shimokura's pedal board.
Yeah.
It's quite huge. I guess
Yes.
it needs two people to hold it. and as for you, as I saw, you use only 2 preamps, and that's all. And the second part of the question: what is the difference between using preamps and using microphone? The only microphone.
Oh, so a microphone will not have sustain, right? So when you're going through the system, because of the pickups, you have a lot more sustain with the vibrating than compared to acoustically capturing that. You can do different tricks when it's plugged in. Like you won't hear as much of the slides when you're microphoned up. And also, it's just easy for me. It's easier to manipulate with the pickup because it's always there. With the mic, if I move a little bit, all of a sudden the sound changes so much.
Right. You have to have really good mic control
Yeah.
if you play with just the mic.
But as singers, because we already are playing with mic control with our vocals, we don't want to have to play with that as well with the instrument as well. 2, you'll get a lot more feedback issues if there's more people on stage and you're playing into a mic as well. So
So we travel very simply because we want our instruments to sound as natural as possible. So when Jake plays, his instrument sounds beautiful when he doesn't have any effects because he has everything dialed in how he wants. And we also have that as well on our on the box that we have on the ground. We have all kinds of dials and we do things, and also the sound person was incredible last night.
yeah.
But Jake also uses more effects, so you'll see him hit something and then he'll sound like an electric guitar, or he'll move over and hit another button and it'll sound like something else. So, and that's an artistic decision that he and other artists make as well. Whereas for us, we say no frills. We just keep it as simple as we can, but we use the LR Bags venues.
So what it really is a DI.
Yeah.
And has some control over the EQ. That way we can have our settings set for that instrument, and then when we plug in for the sound person, we can say, please keep it just like this. You don't have to adjust much. I can adjust it from here so that they have a much better starting point to work with. A lot of times, sound engineers who haven't worked with ukulele a lot don't know how to EQ it at all, and it just sounds
make it too
horrible.
tinny.
So giving them a better starting point is always helpful.
Yeah, and I know the DIs are set up differently because of the different tunings too.
Which pickup did you use and you use?
They are Kanalea actually has their own in-house pickups that they
So I'm not
manipulate
sure.
and
Active.
yeah. So
But
we'll
it's
have active, yes.
There is a 9-volt battery in here. That's why our instruments are heavier than others, is because there's a big battery inside and the pickup is really heavy. Great questions.
Do you recommend to use a condensator instead of this 9-volt battery because it's quite heavy? So this
Yes and no.
Yeah.
The reason is the 9-volt has so much power,
Yeah.
and so a lot of times you want to give the best signal out as possible. But they are heavy. But for us, it's worth at the moment dealing
Yeah.
with.
And it's not so heavy that I could play without a strap for several hours and be fine. But the one thing with
what's the battery?
the
You have to use
battery,
inside, or?
yes, the battery is down here up against the back of the instrument. So one thing that is a blessing and a curse is that in order to change your battery, you need to change your strings. But that's good because it means we change our strings frequently, which we should do because of how often we
Now,
play.
for those of you who always said, "Oh, I can't hear the difference," after 6
On
months,
what? Hear the difference?
when you change your
New
strings.
Okay, yeah.
When you do change your strings, before you take them off,
Yeah.
record yourself a little bit. Then put on the new strings, record, and then compare.
Listen.
You will
You'll
hear
hear
a
it.
big difference.
It is a big difference.
Okay.
You ready?
You guys ready? All right. So, welcome to my advanced theory workshop.
Alright.
It's kind of a lot of trickery that goes on. Let's see. How are my art skills today? Huh?
Yes, it's a school bus.
I think I made a mistake. No. Sorry. Yeah. It is a school bus. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Oh, I made a mistake. Worst drawing ever. I should have done it a bit first. Etc.
Do you need help, Greg?
I need more coffee, is what I need. And then I'll do. All right, this incredibly beautiful drawing. What does this represent? Piano keys. Now, etc. What do the white keys represent? Elaborate. What's about the C scale that's important? What are they classified as?
Basic notes or
Natural notes. No sharps, no flats.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. What do the black keys represent? Sharps or flats. So it's in between those two natural notes. So again, this one between the C and D would be called? Or, so if C sharp or D flat. Why can't it be, how do we determine which one is which? It depends. Alright. Now, this next black key is what? D sharp or E flat. Now, every time we go up one step, what is that called? A half step. Your frets on your ukulele, when you go up one fret, what does that represent? A half step. Okay, so we're getting somewhere now. In the key of C, how many people have heard the term whole, whole, half, whole, half? What does that mean?
It's the step between the natural notes and so there is a.
So in any given key, we have 8 if we go the octave notes. In the key of C, well, before we get to the key of C, between 1 and 2 is going to be a whole step. A whole step is made up of how many half steps? 2. Easy. All right, so this is where we say whole. 2 to 3 is also a whole. 3 to 4 is going to be a half. For the half step, I'm going to do a little caret just to make it obvious that something's different about that. 4 to 5 is also a whole step. 5 to 6, 6 to 7, and the 7 to 8 is also a half step. There's this for now. Now, in the key of C, it happens to line up that there's no sharps or flats because of how it lines up with here. If I'm in the key of C, my root is C. Now, so I'm right here. What's one half step up? C sharp. What's another half step? D, which is a whole step. So here's my D. 2 to 3 is also a whole step. So from D, I go 2 half steps to E. Now, something weird is going to happen because I need a half step. If I'm at E here, what's one half step up? F. Easy. Because again, there's nothing between E and F. So a half step jumps from E straight to F. A whole step up from F. Yep. Whole step up from G. A. Whole step up from A. B. Now half step up from B. Straight to C. Everyone on the same page so far? Not too bad? Now, if we were in the key of F, whole step up from F, G. Whole step up from G, A. Now, 3 to 4 is a half step away, so I know something weird is going to happen. If I'm at A, what's a half step up? Now, here's the question. Why can it not be A sharp?
Because we have an A there.
We need an instance of every letter represented. So if we already have an A, it has to be B flat. Does that make sense? Not too bad, right? So that's why it has to be B flat. Because if it's A sharp, all of a sudden for the next note, we would be missing a B entirely. And we can't have that happen, yes.
Would it maybe be in another scale? The A?
Oh, totally, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. This is how we build it up. And
Right.
so as you see, it has to be represented.
Okay.
And we'll do one that is very similar to that. Now, what are the two spots that there's no black key between the notes? Yes?
She didn't understand.
Just repeat like why is there no A sharp?
Oh. So in our scale, we have to have a representation of every note. So once, unless it's the 1 or 8, because that's the octave. So as we're building up from F, G, A, we can't have an A and an A sharp in the scale. So that's why we have to call it B flat. Even though it's the same tonal note, we have to call it by its proper name in order for the rest of the scale to make sense.
Yeah, I mean it's like a rule, right? There can't be
This.
like
Yes.
you have to accept the rule.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. These are just universal truths, no matter what in music.
Yeah.
And we're going to reinforce that a couple more times, and we'll double check and see.
Highlander rule. Only can be one.
Yes.
I like that.
All right. Now, between which notes are there no black keys? Not numbers, but letters on the piano.
But you were correct.
On the C scale or on the F?
On the piano itself. Which ones are the two white notes in between?
A, B, A, G, and F.
E and F, and B and C. So in my head, whenever if I'm dealing with the numbers, anytime I'm dealing with 3 to 4, or 7 to 8, or B to C, or E to F, I know something weird is going to happen. Something different is going to happen. So here I'm dealing with a B flat. I know something weird is going to happen. Here's my B flat. What's a half step up from B flat? Half step. B. Now what's another half step? C. Because I needed a whole step. Does that make sense? Not too bad. Now, whole step up from C is D. Whole step up. E. I'm at 7 to 8. Something weird is going to happen. Here's my E. Half step up. Straight to F. And your 1 and 8 will always be the same. Let's try this again. Let's try the key of A. Ooh. Whole step 1 to 2. What's a whole step up from A? B. Something weird is going to happen. I'm dealing with a B. Is 2 to 3 a half or a whole? Whole step. Here's my B. What's a half step up from B? What's another half step up? C sharp. Now, why does it have to be C sharp? Because I need a C there. I cannot skip the C. It's a rule.
Highlander.
Now, 3 to 4, half or whole? Half. I'm at C sharp here. What's a half step up? Straight to D. Not bad. Whole step from D? E. Now, I know something weird is going to happen. I'm dealing with an E. Here's my E. I need 2 half steps. What's 1 half step? F. Another half step. Why not G flat? We need an F. Now, another rule that you'll run into, you will never have sharps and flats at the same time in any given key. That's just, again, one of those rules that will happen. You will never have sharps and flats in the same key. Never. Unless there's an accidental. Because accidentals, you can mark it in your music, but the key itself will never have a mix of sharps or flats. Yes?
So, it might be too early to ask that question. But in my mind now, what I start to understand is that if you say that in the scale you need every letter,
Mhm.
that means if I have a different scale, then what I play, if it is like C sharp or D flat, is the same. It's just
Oh, the
bearing.
note sounds exactly the same, yes.
It's just the
But it's the
bearing
label.
on the notes.
Yes.
So, but practically, I do the same.
Yes. Yes. But part of it is that, again, it is important to know the difference in when you're talking about keys or progressions, because it will have a different feel to it. And plus, it'll be very confusing for someone when they have this knowledge, and if you kind of change it up on them, in a
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
Okay, for me it doesn't matter because it's all new.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Baseman and patrol employer.
Okay,
So
now.
if I see, like on a page, oh, there's a C sharp, then I can maybe start thinking, oh, it might be in the key, it might be in the key of A.
We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there. Now, I'm at 6. Half or full to 7? Full. To F sharp to
G sharp.
G sharp. Half step up, 7 to 8 to A. Now, if we're not dealing with one of these crazy things, a whole step will always be natural to natural, or sharp to sharp, or flat to flat. It's a nice little shortcut unless you're dealing with something weird. Let's try one more time. What about the key of B flat? Much easier than you think. If B flat is my root, 1 to 2, half or whole? Whole step. But I know something weird is going to happen. So here's my B flat. What's one half step up? B. Another half step? C. Easy. Whole step up, C to 3 to 4, half or a full? Half. D to E flat. Why not D sharp? Because we already have the D. Again, we need an instance of every letter. Now, something weird is going to happen. I'm at E flat. What's a whole step up or 2 half steps up? F. Whole step up from F? G. Whole step up from G? Half step up to the 8? Not what's a half step up from A? B flat. Does that make sense? Not too bad. Now, this is the how. This is how I want you to practice writing out your scale notes. You can write out 1 through 8. You can give yourself a little hint, 3 and 4, 7, 8. You can even start with the C scale already written. Then I want you to pick a random key that you typically play in, like D or A or F or G, and I want you to fill out the rest of those notes. This doesn't take very long, but the more you do it, the faster and faster it gets. Now, here's the why. Not only does this tell you what notes that are found in any given scale, but it also tells you the family of chords that you're going to see. Do you remember Sarah's workshop? Not only do these represent scale notes, but they represent your chords. The one chord is typically what? In a major key? Major. Yeah. So this is typically your major. 2 is what? Minor. 3 is? 4 is? Major. 5 is? Major or dominant. Yep.
Or dominant 7, yeah.
6 is minor. 7 is your diminished or half diminished. But this means if I said I want a 1-6-2-5 progression in F, What does that mean? I'm playing a F,
6,
D minor, 2, G minor, 5, C or C7. So this is how we can talk in numbers instantly. So that'll be F, D minor, G minor, C or C7. There's so much power just being able to write out your scale notes. And again, it'll tell you all the notes found in that scale, but also the family of chords that you'll typically see. Again, some of the rules will bend a little bit, like Hawaiian music. We talked about how the 2 ends up being a dominant chord typically. But this, for 99% of music out there, that is true. Does that make sense?
Just one more
Yes.
I understood that there must be also a rule, like if it's a major or a minor, but the meaning behind, I didn't get.
Now, here's the cool thing.
Okay.
Knowing your scale notes,
Yes.
not only does, again, do your scale notes and the family of chords that you're going to be playing, but it tells you how to make each chord.
Yeah.
So for example, a major chord, we talked about the major triad, is made up of what numbers? 1, 3, and 5. So watch this. In the key of C, what is my 1? C. What is my 3? What is my 5? What is my 5? All right, now, how we typically hold the C major chord? 0, 0, 0, 3. This note is what? G. This note is C. This note is E. This note is C. Let's get there from the open A. Open A, what's a half step up? B flat or A sharp in this case, it doesn't really matter. Another step up? B, C. Now, that is a mix of our 1, 3, 5, and we have an extra C, or a C up here. A minor, so this is, if major is equal to a 1, 3, 5, what is a minor?
There's one difference.
A flat 3 and a 5. Now, before we get into minors, let's push that major for a second. If I asked you for a major 7 chord, what do you think that means?
You started the root, the 7.
So the 1,
7. So you have a 1,
3, 5.
and then you add a 7.
So, what he's saying, a major chord, the major triad, is what numbers again? 1, 3, and 5. When I ask for a major 7th chord, all I'm asking you for is a 1, 3, 5, and a 7. Now, in the key of C, what is my 7th note? B. How many half steps from C is B? Half. So that means I can take that C note, place them here, and that becomes a B. So again, this is how we're going from a C major to a C major 7. Now, a dominant 7 chord. So for example, we would see this as, C. We would see this as a C triangle, sometimes 7. Now, for when we see C7 like that, it's actually referring to a dominant 7 chord. And what that's going to say is that it's a 1, 3, 5, but a flatted 7.
Oh, okay.
Now, if we know this is our 7th note, all I have to do is flat it how many half steps? Half. So I still have my 1, 3, 5, and I went from an 8 to a 7 to a flatted 7 note, my B flat. Now, I went from a C major to a C major 7 to a C dominant 7. Now, this is one of the most confusing things when I first started, the difference between a major 7 and a dominant 7. Mainly because no one says dominant 7.
They just
So that's the frustrating part. But so whenever you hear something like C7 or G7 or E7, it's always talking about the dominant 7, which isn't the 7th note, but a flat 7.
You call it a C7, C flatted 7 also. Or
You know, no, you
you
just,
call it, but just
yeah.
understand my head.
In your head, yes.
Because exactly
Yes.
that's the problem I didn't understand.
Yes.
May I just ask, maybe you would know, wie heißt es auf Deutsch, dominant Septima? Okay.
Don't get in there. We're getting there. Now,
Sorry.
yes.
Is this the right shot on the video? Is it
Oh.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's on. Yeah.
no. Is that one on the video?
No.
It's outside of the video.
It is.
Good job.
There we go.
There we go. So, again, the major is the 1, 3, 5. Minor is 1 flatted 3rd 5. Major 7 is using that 7th note, 1, 3, 5, and the B note. Dominant 7, or like a C7, is a 1, 3, 5 flatted 7. Now, if you're a betting person, if you were a gambler, what would you gamble if I asked you for a major 6 chord? What numbers? 1, 3, 5, 6! See how easy this is? What is my 6th note in the key of C? A. Now again, if we already knew the flatted 7, how far is the 6 away from my flat 7? Half step. So I can take my flatted 7, go to my 6th note, and that all of a sudden is a C major 6. This is why people say the ukulele is tuned to a C6 tuning. Yes.
So C major 6 is the same as C6?
Yes.
Yes.
But
It's
C
confusing.
major 7 is not the same as a C7.
Correct.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
why it's the worst. It's the worst. It's
So
kind of like the key of H.
Yes.
What? You know, like this.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the one reason why you have C7 and C major 7 is those
Oh,
chords.
talking from the mic.
Oh,
please.
sorry. Sorry. The reason why you have a C major 7 and a C7 is those are comprised of different. There's one note that's different, but there's no other chord that is based on a major chord that uses 6. That's why. Whereas a dominant 7 chord and a major 7 chord are both based on a major chord, but they do something funny to the 7 in one of them. But the 6 one, you'll never see C6 mean anything other than major 6 because there's nothing else. If you see any alteration, it's going to be the number 13, but that's a whole other class. Because 6 and 13 are the same letter, but don't worry about that right now.
And high numbers, what's the 9?
The high numbers means that they want that, so
if we were to continue,
and I'm just going to briefly say a high number. If you see a high number in a chord, it's just saying I want that note to be the highest in your chord if possible.
yeah. So for example, what would you think a 9 note in the key of C is? D. So that means, but the 9s are also typically based on a dominant 7 chord.
Yeah.
So a C9 would be a C7 with the D note on top.
If it's a major 9, it
Yeah.
comes from major 7.
Yeah.
But that's a different class.
Yeah. Yes, Tom.
So if the rule is that you have to have in the scale, except for the 1st and the 8th, you have to have every letter represented. Then, I don't know if this is true, but you can't have scales and sharps. You can't have a sharp scale.
You can have sharps or flats in the
In the
same.
same.
No, I mean like you can't have this. What do we call that? That's a scale, or that's a what is that?
C sharp.
What is that? C, D, E, F.
The scale, yeah.
Scale.
A scale. So you can't have a scale in A sharp because then you would have no B.
No, but that's why we have a B flat.
I know, but
and a
then you
yeah.
can't. So
But
what I'm
in the
thinking,
key
you
of A
can't
sharp.
have sharp scales, or are there sharp scales?
There are some, and that goes into the whole circle fifth thing where like certain ones will have to be starting on a certain.
So there's no A sharp scale.
Yeah. You wouldn't
There's
really
no
see.
D.
I mean,
You will find it on the circle.
You'll find
Yeah.
you'll find it, but people rarely play in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll
Yeah.
find it.
And we'll jump into that a little bit later because that kind of gets us a little far from topic at the moment. But let's bring it up a little bit later. No.
No,
That's a
all
good
good
question.
questions.
Now,
But only flats and only
Yeah.
There's no stupid question, just stupid people.
Nope.
now again,
No, I'm just kidding.
the most important thing right now at this point in time is to be able to write out again the 1 through 8, those C scale, and those half steps. Being able to pick a key that you typically play in. Don't choose a key that you never play in, because then what's the point? You want to be familiar with the chords that you already can play.
Yeah.
So again, F, G, D, A, those kind of keys, or B flat. Be able to write them out, double check, make sure your 1 and 8 are the same. And again, this is going to give you all the tools you need when someone's in a circle and you're jamming. Because typically we see a lot of 1, 4, 5, 6 chords when we play. So if I know that we're playing in F, I know I will see a lot of B flats. I know I will see a lot of C or C7s. I know I'll see a ton of D minors. But you start to get familiar of what chords to expect to play. So this is again a little bit going back onto how can we just jump in and play without having the sheet music. If Sarah says I'm in the key of A, I'll see a lot of C sharp minors, I'll see a lot of D, I see a lot of E or E7s, but you start to have that home base to pull from and then experiment a little bit. And as we experiment, then again, we'll start to train our ears on what these kind of steps feel like. For example, I did a lot of training just by myself in the key of C, for example. Going from my root to my 5 chord G7. Okay, so that's what that sounds like. And then I'll practice going from my C to F. And getting used to how that sounds different. Close your eyes. Everyone close your eyes. Close your eyes, close your eyes. Here's my root chord to my 5 chord. My root chord to my 5 chord. Now I'm gonna go from C to my 4 chord. Okay, knowing that, keep your eyes closed. I'm gonna play 4 chords and you're gonna tell me which chords. What chords? 1, 4, 1, 5. Part of this is forcing yourself to start really thinking about what you're hearing. Some people assign feelings to it. Like for example, going from a 5 chord back home, it has that kind of nice full circle moment where having the 4 feels like it's still gonna keep going a bit more. There's little things to think about, but you have to take the time because again, how many times have we played progressions like that in groups? Many times. But now, when you start to think and hear and really think about how those progressions are being heard by you, you'll start to assign values. You'll start to assign different descriptions so that you can hopefully pick them out later. So sometimes I'll play without music just to see if I can figure out what chords. But once you have your key, again, you have the family of chords that you'll typically frequent. That's why this part is so important. Not too bad? Okay.
Leonard Cohen said in Hallelujah, the minor fall.
He tells you. He's cheating. He tells you what to do. Now, I strayed a little bit, but... Oh. Okay. Let's see if I can erase this.
I don't think you can.
Oh no!
Yeah, it
Oh
doesn't-
no!
yeah, it doesn't really- So you just
Okay.
There's one thing that I do want to just mention.
Kind of.
Can we Change the paper.
Take the back of
The markers kind of went through, and it might be hard to read.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
Oh, it's okay.
That's right.
It's okay.
We'll improvise.
Try to point out the green one, mule, and then.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, who's wearing a white shirt? I'll just
Hang on the wall.
One thing I want to just point out, if we're looking at our C scale, Craig had said the 1, the 3, and the 5 make your major chord. Well, so notice that it's a note, skip a note, a note, skip a note. Sorry. Note, skip, note, skip, note, skip, note. If I actually did that and start on D, skip, note, those are the 3 notes found in D minor, which is found in your C major scale. If you have E, skip a note, G, skip a note, B, that's your 3 chord. Those are the notes found in E minor. So the other thing that your scales will tell you too are in the family of chords, what notes are happening in those chords too. So that's something else, another reason that scales are great. Yeah.
Is that called a major chord still?
Well, no. It's not called a major chord anymore. This is just telling you the notes that will actually happen in all of the family of chords that are played.
So when she's
in
starting
D.
a D, she's actually playing a
D minor.
in
So
the
it's
key of
D,
C, yeah.
F, A, D minor, E, G, B is E minor, F, A, and C is F major, G, B, and then it would be D, would be your G chord. So that's another way I use the scales too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
Craig.
Can I erase? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Goodbye. Oh, my beautiful piano.
Or school bus.
Could you put it back? I forgot.
All right. Now, moving up the fretboard is so much easier than you think. You're gonna be like, why did we even come? This is so easy. Oh no!
Do you
Straight lines.
Do you still need this one, Craig?
Not at the moment. I gotta. Okay. Oh, not bad, not bad.
hat jemand da einen Entferner dabei?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Also Fensterputz finde ich auch ganz gut, wenn ihr sowas wollt.
2, 3,
Also, das
4,
funktioniert wirklich.
5,
Das hat- ist noch
6,
kein-
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Not too bad. Now this is the I think I used the wrong pen. Uh-oh.
It's okay, she's getting something.
Yeah. I think I'm
All right, are we all here? Raise your hand if you're not here. All right. Now, this is going to be a little shorter than the first part, I hope. And then we will have a nice lunch break, and then we'll come back with Sarah's workshop. And then we'll go from there. All right. What is this beautiful drawing? Fretboard.
High-rise building.
Now, here's the promise. There are only 4 big movable shapes. 4. Just 4. Easy. That's it, just 4. Again, there will be voicings that we could do some crazy stretches, but for the movable shapes, it will always be just 4. Super, super easy. For example, I'm going to call these shapes. So even though I say the C, I'm going to say shape. The reason is, again, it doesn't really matter how we're holding it. But if we're to play a C chord, open, 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 and 3. Easy, right? Now, the next shape that we're going to play, and I'll color code this.
Is it removable?
It is, it is.
Scary.
B flat shape. What that means. Everyone play at the first C chord for me. Strum, 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 strum. Now, look at your ring finger on your A string. You're going to replace that ring finger with your index finger, and you're going to make what looks like a B flat. Play that for me. Does that make sense? Now, again, if I was to take this shape and move it down 2 frets, what chord is this? B flat. Hence the B flat shape. Let's move it up 1 fret. What chord is this? B. 1 more up. Again, so this is our C chord in the B flat shape. Not too bad? Does that make sense? So again, anytime we're holding down 4 strings, it will be a movable shape. Now, the next C chord. Well, first of all, everyone play the first C in the C shape again for me. Original, yep. Now play the next one up, the B flat shape. Now pause right there. Look at the I would say the last played note, the one that's further down the neck, is going to be your ring finger. What fret is your ring finger on? 5. Now, to get to the next shape, this is what we're going to do. We're looking at our last played note on that 5th fret. We're going to skip the entire next fret. So I'm skipping 6. Bless you. Bar 7. Don't play just yet. So bar 7. The entire 7th fret. No, don't play just yet. Because from here, we're going to play what looks like an F chord with a middle and ring finger. So this is our C chord in the F shape. Let's try this one more time. Original C. Good. Now, looking at our last played note, that ring finger, I'm going to start my B flat shape there on that 3rd fret. Now, to get to the next shape, I look at my last played note, which is on that 5th fret, skip the next fret, bar the next, so I'm barring 7, and make what looks like a what shape? F. Keep playing that, keep playing that. I can play this C, I can play this C, and it sounds perfect with you guys. Not too bad? So, what we're doing here is skip the entire fret to bar the next. And what shape are we making it look like? How many shapes did I say there were? 4. We're 75% done. Now, but here's the trickiest one. Let's build it up one more time from the beginning. Original C chord. Now, how do we get to the next shape? The B flat shape, we replace it here on the 3rd fret. Now, before we move, what's the name of the next shape? F. How do we get there? Alright, so we look at our last play note, which is on the 5. Skip the entire next fret, 6. Bar the next, 7. And make what looks like a what shape? F. Good. Now pause right there. Again, looking at our last played note down the scale, what finger? Ring finger. What fret? 9. Now, keep that there for just a second. Hold it. Instead of a skip this time, we're gonna do a step to the A string. So step. And we're gonna make what looks like an E flat shape. Now this is not easy to play. So if we said we're on 9, we're gonna step to the 10 on the A and make what looks like, you can either do it with all 4 fingers, which is really hard, or you can do the double bar. This is not an easy shape up here to do. So I'm not gonna force us to really do it because we're never really gonna play that shape up there. But does the concept make sense? Bless you. Now,
Would you mind putting the numbers of the threads on the left-hand side or the dots?
nope.
Okay.
The reason is it doesn't matter. Because here's where things change. Here's where things change. For example, play an A chord. A chord, 2 1 0 0. Of these shapes, what does the A chord look like? The B flat shape, right? If I was to borrow that, right, that looks like an A. So we can say that this A chord is in the B flat shape. Now here's the rule. All of the shapes go in this exact order on a cycle. So that means my next A chord is going to be in what shape? F shape. How do we get there? We look at our last played note, which is on the what fret? 2nd fret. We're going to skip the 3rd, bar the 4th, and make what looks like a F shape. So this is my A chord in the F shape. So if you play this, I could play this, and it would sound fantastic. So that's what I mean by the dots don't really matter because we're not always going to start from the top. Okay. Now, this is my A chord in the F shape. What's my next shape for my next A chord? E flat shape. How do we get there? We look at our last played note. Happens to be what fret? 6. So I'm going to step to 7 and then make the 3 in a row here. So 9, 9, 9, 7. Now, pause right there. What's my next shape? I told you, it always goes in a cycle. My C shape. How do I get from this shape to that shape? Do we know? The 3 in a row here, we're going to replace that 3 in a row with a bar. Because these 3 notes are the exact same notes there. And so pinky out, we're back to the C shape. So this is now my A chord in the C shape. Alright, so these 3 here are the exact same 3 notes there. So we're going to replace it with a bar and add our pinky foot up shape. Not too bad? Yes?
I have a little bit of difficulties to place the E shape. How do you do it? You bar them? Or
That's a great question. Let's talk about that E flat shape. What also does that look like if I was to close that off there? D. Let's practice our D shape for just a second. Tom's favorite. Now, we're going to try something different. Take off your index, but now use middle, ring, and pinky. Now, watch this. If this shape has to go up 1 fret, I have to put my index on the A string on the 1st fret. That's my E flat. And then push up. Here's my E. Push up again, F. Now, pause right there. The reason why it's easier to build this chord with these fingers first is that when we start this way, everything starts to get crammed in. But we give ourselves that space first, and then dropping that index down. Does that help? Yes, question.
Is it, would it be recommendable to do the D chord with those three fingers?
You could.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about playing chords in different positions, that's what you mean by that
Exactly.
shape, right?
Exactly. Let's try this again. Let's play our D chord. 2 2 2 0. What shape is this? The E flat shape, right? 2 2 2 in a row. Now, what's my next shape? C. How do we get there? We bar the 3 in a row, pinky out. Right, this is my D chord in the C shape. What's after the C shape? The B flat shape. How do I get there? No, not skip. So look at your pinky, the last played note. You're gonna start that B flat chord from there. So we're doing a B flat chord starting on the 5th fret. So here's my D chord in the B flat shape. What's after the B flat shape? F. How do we get there? This is the skip. So if my ring finger's on the 7, I skip 8, bar the next, so I bar 9, and make what looks like an F shape. Ta-da! But this is what I mean. You already know these shapes. You can play up and down that fretboard. You just now have to figure out where you start. That's not bad. So when people think, oh, I don't have time to remember all of the different chords, 4 movable shapes that you already know. You just have to know how to get from one to the next. So one is replacing and starting, one is skipping, one is stepping, and then one is barring. That's it. So again, you have 15 minutes. Sometimes I would just say, okay, I'm going to do my C chords. C in the C, C in the B flat, C, and maybe I'll skip this one because again, I'm not going to play that chord up here. So maybe I'll just do the first 3. Or sometimes what Sarah would do in a jam, instead of playing this C here, every time she sees a C chord, she'll jump up to this C chord just to get used to playing up the neck. But it's not that difficult. And then you throw in a different chord, and then the next day I'll say maybe I'll do my Fs. So here's my F in the F shape, here's my F in the E flat shape, F in the C, F in the B flat. And that's it, over and over and over. And you'll find yourself playing this faster and faster. Why? Because it's the same cycle. So even though you start differently on the fretboard, because it's that same repetition, it's gonna get quicker and quicker and quicker. So that's why sometimes we're not thinking even what chords we're playing, because if I'm ever in this shape, I know I could always jump up to instinctively, because those will always be true. They will always be in that cycle. So that's what you say. We're not necessarily giving it a lot more thought. A lot of it is just options to have. Yes?
So if I have a G
Yes.
and a bass in the first basic position.
So that's the one chord. Our typical G chord does not fit in these shapes because of that open G. Because typically, especially for low G players, like you do typically have that barred version of the G chord. This barred chord version of it, what shape does this look like? An F.
Right.
So that's the only one that we typically play like this that doesn't have the movable version of it. But that's the only one.
But once I get this one, then
What-
I think I need back in the
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
But you have the G7, you can move very, very nice.
The G7?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Well, so anytime you think you're wondering, how can I move up that chord? Take your index finger, take it completely off. And so if I said a G7, if you make a G7 with these 3 fingers, if I slid everything up 1, now the index helps with it. Again, this is how you create any chord to be a movable shape. It's just taking that index finger and making whatever chord you have to and moving everything up at the same distance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the same with G minor.
Yep, exactly. Great questions. Not too bad though, right? Shall we try another one? F. Now this is tricky because what shape is this? Now, without even thinking, before we move, what is the next shape? E flat. How do we get there? What term? Step. Step. So we're doing a step between the F shape and the E flat shape. So if our middle finger is on the 2, that means we step to the 3. Yep. It's okay. As long as you say it with confidence. Now, E flat and look left. Yes. E flat shape. So 5, 5, 5, 3. What's the next shape? C shape. How do we get there? We bar the 3 in a row. Pinky out. So we're barring 5. Pinky on the 8. How do we get to the next shape? What is the next shape? B flat. How do we get there? Look at our pinky. Start the B flat shape where your pinky is. That's it. See how easy? Let's try one more. Well, here, look. Well, here's another throwback. This chord is an F chord, but in what shape? C shape. Now, do you remember? When I went from my C shape and I went down a fret here? C major 7. So what do you think this chord is called? F major 7. I went from an F to an F major 7. What do you think this chord is called? An F7 or F dominant 7. What do you think this chord is called? F6. That's what I mean by all of this is related. Anytime you have that shape, now not only do you know your F major, but now you know your F major 7. Now you know your F dominant 7. Now you know your F major 6 chord. Just by relating what you did earlier in that previous shape. So you'll start to see these patterns when you go from, let's say, an A to an A major 7 to an A dominant 7. The same way, whenever you're in that shape, you can always refer to that and it'll always be the same. Not too bad? Now again, we tend to do too much at once, right? Again, we give you a lot of information, but I want you to take your time. This is the next kind of progression into that, but I want you again to be able to write out your scale notes. So you have your family of scale notes, you have your family of chords, you'll be able to figure out what notes make up each chord, and then start really diving into the other stuff. But take your time. Nothing is more frustrating than just feeling like you're just treading water in the deep end. You want to have something concrete to work on. Take a bit at a time. Don't try to do everything at once. But again, it's all on the video, so you can take your time with it. That's the great thing of why we do what we do. Are there any big questions? Yes.
If you look at the B shape,
yes,
you use the pointer to bar 2 strings. If I bar 4 because I want to go on like this, does it sound different if I use it for a B
totally.
shape?
No. So the question was, in that B flat shape, does it matter if you bar 2 only or bar 4? Some people have an easier time barring 4 to get that shape. Some people have an easier time doing 2. Again, it but if I know I'm going to a B, okay. So one more example. I'm just gonna use the safe marker on this one, just to. Okay. Now, let's say, just like that example of that C chord moving down. Let's take an A chord, because the A chord is in what shape? B flat, so very similar. So if this is my A chord, nothing fancy, correct? This is my A note, this is my C sharp, this is my E, this is my A. So I have a 1, a 3, a 5, and another 1 or an 8. Again, not too bad, right? Now, if I wanted an A major 7 chord, again, I need a 1, 3, 5, but I have to flat one of my roots because the 1 is also the same number as 8, right? An octave. Can I flat this? No, so I'm gonna flat this guy. So my major 7 would sound like an A dominant 7 is made up of what numbers? A 1, 3, 5, and flat 7. So I would just take that flat, the 7 off. So that's my A7, right? We all know and love. So that means, knowing that means if I'm playing an actual B flat, and I want to play a B flat major 7, I can bring that G string down 1. If I wanted to play a B7 or a B flat 7 or B flat dominant 7, I move it down 1 again. It's all related. So in this case, if I know I'm going from a B to a B flat or a B flat to a B flat 7, I would actually bow all 4 so I can let go of that ring finger. So again, in context, it always depends. But as you see here, anytime you have a movable shape and you manipulate it to get a different voicing, you can do that anywhere up the fretboard. For example, my F up here in the B flat shape, F major 7, F dominant 7. Again, it's all connected. It's all movable and related. Not too bad?
Fine.
Okay, now, there's 4 big movable shapes for the major. There's 4 big movable shapes for the minor and dominant. I will send you the color-coded PDFs.
We get the minor
Yes.
chords.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yes,
All right. Any questions?
you
Oh.
do. Actually, that's what I'm working on right now.
Yes.
Is actually your presence.
Yes. No, here's why we are working so hard for you guys. Is because, well, you know, Sabina took such good care of us last time we were here, and we wanted to give back in a way that, you know, we realized how hungry you guys were for instruction, and so we really wanted to do our best to do good by you guys. So that's why we were going as much as we can, you know, because we really believe that a lot of you were just needing an extra nudge to get to that next level, and we hope that you are having these light bulb moments, because that's part of the fun of music. And, no, and so, you know, we love to help. Again, we're here for you, and that's the thing that we couldn't really do with the 1 workshops at a time. It's much harder than this really progressive link of things throughout the week. So again, thank you for bearing with us as we kind of play by ear on this a lot. But any big questions before lunch?
Big question.
What's your question? No. Now again.
Still come back next year.
Or should we meet in Hawaii and
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Is this what do you mean? We can play C minor for half an hour with different shapes.
This
or
is
there
one of-
another
this is one of
way?
them.
One of the ways.
Yes.
One of the ways.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
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 So if you're stuck on C minor for a half an hour, you have 4 different places you can play
Yes.
C minor.
Well, no, another reason is why. Why is playing up the neck important? Again, part of the reason why we choose to do some of this movement is to create a different feel. So, for example, a song like a drop, baby, drop, drop all your love on me, drop. But now instead of just the E7 here, if I did E7, 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 it would, or work our way down, it would sound something like this. Drop, baby, drop, drop all your love on me, drop, baby, drop, drop 'cause I'm hungry. And again, this shape looks like what? Like a B7. This shape looks like what? Like a D7. You know all of these chords. And this E7 shape, again, if I got rid of my index and played the E7 and it slid everything up, what does that look like? F7. That's how easy this really is. But again, when we play, we get so distracted by everything else, we don't make that connection. How related these things really are. So, yes?
So when I play the D7 here,
Yes.
then I could say that is it's basically in the C shape.
Yes.
So I could go up, the next shape would be the B flat shape.
Yeah, for that D7 there. So again, it works off of the major shape to get to, yes.
Can you repeat that? The D7 like
Yeah, so he was saying that like from C to C7
Yeah.
is very similar to D to D7, kind of like we talked about earlier. And the next shape for the D major is this B flat shape. But again, to the D7 is right there. So again, they are all very similar in how they're based from getting that major chord. And we just did this one actually, and we walked it down to that dominant 7 voicing.
Why do you call it a B shape and not A shape?
I tried as much as I could to not have a lot of open strings when I call the shape, because it's a little bit easier to visualize, because it's moving up from there. But it could be a lot of guitarists will actually call this like the cage method, where the C shape, A shape, G shape, E shape, same concept. Yeah, same exact concept. But for me, going from the A shape, a lot of people forgot they had to bar that first fret when they moved up. Yeah. But great question. Any other questions? Lunchtime?
Yeah.
All right, lunchtime. Woo!
When are we going?
When do we come back, Sarah?
Announcement.
I will have raffle and things how about during tea time? I think that'll be easier. Is that okay, Kurt? We'll do it during tea. But the raffle's not till Sunday.
Wer noch Tickets für die Verlosung haben möchte, die gibt es zu Kaffee und Kuchen. Also nicht, wir hatten zwar jetzt schon, aber genau. Dann geht's, wir haben ja wirklich wunderbares Wetter heute und angedacht ist ein Picknick. Da wollte ich fragen, wie groß das Interesse ist. Nein, das ist genau. Die Idee ist, aufs Tempelhofer Feld zu gehen, einfach mit Decken uns rauszusetzen. Jeder bringt irgendwas Kleines mit. Es muss jetzt nichts Großes sein. Bitte? Heute. Wir sprechen von heute. Das war angedacht heute als Abendprogramm. Wir können auch überlegen, ob wir direkt nach dem Unterricht da zusammen dann hinfahren. Und Diana hatte eine Idee, oder es war wohl auch ein Wunsch.